Tuesday night, guys. Coming to you live from Indianapolis. It's Chappy here. Chappy's Chat, Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network. Thanks to Arnie Jones. Great job at 6 o'clock, as always, Arnie. He's on just about every day now, so he's sounding like a grizzled seasoned veteran, as he has from the beginning. So well done, Arnie, as always. But you know what? It's Chappy's turn. I work hard all week to try and bring you guys some things that, other folks may have not gotten. So this is my chance to share what I've kind of taken in over the past week, and I hope you guys enjoy. So what's on tap tonight? So first off, we're gonna do our normal breakdown of the American League and National League. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about the AL West. After that, we're going to move into some All-Star game talk. We're going to talk about some guys who, maybe are clear-cut deserving to win the job, and then some others who maybe got the shaft, so to speak. And then after that, I think this is a really important time. There's a lot of good waivers claims out there. So, I want to talk about some guys that, you might be able to, if you're hurting in certain areas. You don't always get a chance to get saves. You don't always get a chance to get, a quality starter at this point of the year. It's usually pretty dried up. There's some guys out there right now who can help us. So, like I said, I usually try and wait till 7 o'clock, but tonight I felt like coming on early because I've got a lot to share, and I hope you guys enjoy. So, without further ado, let's get started. We're going to talk first off. Let's go through the standings real quick. I'm not going to sit here and belabor them, but I do want to talk about who the players are, right? So who our good teams are, because it's going to matter. It matters when you're trying to figure out, do you want to pick up player A versus player B? You want to know where they are in the standings, and you want to know some tendencies to go along with it, okay? So, as I said tonight, we're going to talk about the AL West. So let's start on the AL East. The AL East, we got the Yankees. They're really starting to come into form. They're starting to get healthy, and that's the last thing the rest of the American League needed was to get this team healthy. Because as it stands right now, they're at 50-28. They have they're winning 64% of their games. And they're equally effective on the road and at home. They've scored 95 more runs than they've allowed, and they're clearly, last week, Arnie called me out not putting the Yankees in as one of the top 4 teams in the majors. They're clearly one of the top 4 teams in the majors, Arnie. Okay, Cha-Cha, I know you like hearing that as well. So right now they're in a dogfight. They've kind of built a little bit of a lead over the Rays. They have a 5-game lead over Tampa Bay, but Boston's hanging there tough. Boston's at 43-37. They're 8 games back. That's your 3 players in the AL East. Okay, those are the 3 teams. Now we're gonna talk about when Bo Bichette gets called up, when some of these rookies do things. Lourdes Gurriel, I'm gonna talk about a little bit later on. When some of these rookies come up and do things that are worth speaking to, we'll speak to them. But as for mentioning them in this weekly breakdown, I'm not going to do it, okay? So that's where we're standing. This is a 3-team race. Right. You're absolutely right, Cha-Cha. And that's why I make sure, you look at what Boston's doing. And I heard Arnie talk about him earlier. Stephen Wright gives Boston a different look than what the other guys, whether it be in the bullpen or in the rotation, is giving teams. So what Stephen Wright, or is it Stephen Wright? I always think of the comedian. I know it's the same guy, or the same name rather, but Stephen Wright has a knuckleball, and he throws low 90s. So you're looking at a guy who's going to give you a really different look. That is really big. Whether it be, again, in a rotation or in the bullpen, that's something that, teams are finding right now, right? So everybody's got these fireballers. This guy's a little bit different. So, Boston's got some things. They're headed in the right direction. So, again, three-team race in the East. I look for it to be that way all year. Interesting to see what Tampa Bay does. because they're really in a scenario where they don't have maybe the capital that these other two teams have, but yes, Meckert, I am on. So anyway, they don't have maybe the firepower financially that the other two teams in the East have, but Tampa Bay is going to be able to add from within with guys like Jose De Leon and Brandon McKay and some of these other guys. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. They're going to have to make some crafty moves to kind of supplement those guys. But Brandon McKay and everybody has kind of forgotten about Jose De Leon. Cool. Meckert, thanks for joining in, brother. Long time no hear. So yeah, Tampa Bay is going to do it a little bit differently than Boston and New York will. But they're going to have to add from within. Okay, look for Brandon McKay, look for Jose De Leon in the very near future with those guys. Okay, in the Central rather, you got this is the Twins division to win. Okay, they're the cream of the crop, but I'll preface it by saying, don't sleep on the Indians. It is easy to forget De Leon. But you know what, though? I mean, he's one of these post-hype sleepers, Lenny, that really, he's doing what he's stretching himself out AAA. He's been effective. He's just waiting for the opportunity. And in all honesty, it's coming soon. So again, that's someone that I stashed him in my home league. I really think that Jose De Leon is someone that is kind of getting overlooked. Okay? So back to the Central. Again, it's Minnesota's for the most part, it's Minnesota's. Where I want to talk about Cleveland, though, is, and you got the White Sox as well, they're viable as well, but Cleveland is starting to get healthy, and they're starting to show that they have some young people that can help them, right? So who am I talking about? I'm talking about Bobby Bradley. I'm talking about Oscar Mercado. I'm talking about some of these young pitchers. I don't know how much depth Cleveland has, because they kind of do things a little differently. But the fact of the matter is some of these guys, Zach Plezak's legitimate, right? Oscar Mercado's legitimate. So when you see this Savali come up, who was drafted and is more highly coveted than both of the other pitchers that were brought up earlier, it makes you kind of stop and take pause. How good are these guys really, right? So, I mean, if I'm an Indians fan, I kind of want to see them trade away some of these talented pitchers and get some guys back in return, some young talent to help infuse these other guys. I mean, I'm not saying sell the farm, but maybe a mini reset in Cleveland is called for. But you can still contend doing that, is my point. So if you're Cleveland and you want to trade a Trevor Bauer, say, you can probably yield some major league talent from that, some young major league talent from that, right? So, I'm just kind of the mindset that at 43-35, 8-2 in their last 10, and they've won 4 in a row, I really think Cleveland is in a good position to capitalize on some of this momentum they have. So the other team you got to watch out for, and for a different reason, is the White Sox. And the White Sox, so they're 2 games below 500. They've kind of been in a tailspin. But we all know about the type of talent that Chicago has in the minor leagues. Eloy Jimenez has come back and been an effective player, the player that we thought he was going to be, coming back from injury. You have guys like Dylan Cease in the minors. You have Luis Robert in the minors. It'll be interesting to see. This is another team who can kind of walk that fine line. They can add via or subtract via paycheck, and they can definitely add via these young guys, right? So again, Chicago's an interesting team. This time next year, guys, I think we're really going to be talking about the White Sox in a totally different light, okay? But for now, I think we might be just a little bit premature with them. But that's not to say they're not going to be exciting, right? So I'll skip the West. We'll come back to it because I'm going to do a little bit deeper dive. Let's go to the NL East. It's really interesting in the East. It's hard to break down, and it's hard to really, at the moment, it looks like a one-team race. It looks like this is the Braves' race to run away with. They have a 5.5 game lead. They need some pitching help, but their offensive output has really kind of kept them in the ball games and allowed them to build this comfy lead. I remember just a couple weeks ago, Arnie and I were talking about how, when Philadelphia was still in the lead in that division, how we thought that the Braves were coming on, and once that they really kind of gained some traction, we're going to run away with it. Well, here we are. Here we are, guys. We're right in the middle of it, right? They got a 5.5 game lead on Philly. Washington's at 8. The Mets are at 9. And the Marlins, who might be the second best team in this division, I said it. They might be the second best team in this division, are at 14.5 out. I'll mention the Marlins, even though they're at the bottom, because of their pitching. And we all know pitching plays, right? So what the Marlins have that these other teams don't is they have depth in their starters. And they're able to leverage some of these guys if they choose. I totally agree on that, Lenny. I'll come back to it. If they choose, they could trade at Caleb Smith and get the mother load that they need to infuse with some of these young players. The Marlins are going to be sellers, but their turnaround is going to be quick because of this young pitching that they have. This Zach Gallen and Yamamoto and some of these, Pablo Lopez, these guys are legitimate and they're not going away. Okay? So what that does is it makes a guy like Jose Urena, it makes a guy like Caleb Smith, it makes a guy like Trevor Richards expendable. And that's all we're talking about. If you can get rid of one of the, I say get rid of like it's a good thing, but in this situation it is a good thing. If you can get rid of one of these guys and leverage that, you can't go doing what they did with Stanton or Ozuna or Yelich. You can't get garbage back. But I don't think that's the new ownership's motive. Okay? I think that this is a team, Arnie said it time and time again, Derek Jeter doesn't like to lose. He doesn't like to lose. So he's not going to lose as a GM. He's going to get players that fit the type of mold that he wants, right? And it's going to work. So you look at these guys that have come up with Miami. They've shown that they've done their due diligence in scouting these pitchers. It plays to their ballpark. Now they're going to get some guys who play to the same ballpark mold offensively. So what do I mean by that? Spray hitters, doubles hitters, speed guys, okay? So look for that at the trade deadline with the Marlins, trying to obtain some of these guys. I haven't done a whole lot of digging into a Jorge Mateo type of guy, a guy who has elite speed, who can come in and contribute immediately while still growing into his role, right? So that's my take on the East. Again, the Braves and everyone else. I don't mean to scoff over the Phillies or the Mets or the Nationals, but for sake of time, we could talk about those teams another day. We'll come around to it next week, actually, as we talk about the East. But just know, this is the Braves division. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Now, everybody calls me a homer. I'm a Central guy, right? NL Central. My Cubbies are 43-35. They have a game lead on Milwaukee. The one thing that stuck out to me when I was looking at these numbers is the Brewers now, okay, everybody talks about the Brewers offense. The Brewers now have joined the Pirates as the only other team in this division with a negative run differential. They have dipped at -1, okay? They scored 390 runs, which is pretty darn good. And speaks to how good their offense is. But the part that isn't adding up is the 391 runs they've given up. Okay? So that tells me Milwaukee needs a pitcher. And it's dire needs right now, right? So we'll see what they do. They're making some moves with their bullpen, kind of trying some different things out from within. But don't be surprised if they go out and they try and get an elite starter to supplement what is a really good offense, okay? They got Brandon Woodruff. No, you're absolutely right, UT. The Brewers' starting pitchers are terrible. And they've tried different guys, and it's not worked out. They've brought in Gio Gonzalez. They've tried, guy after Corbin Burns. Guy after guy they've tried and failed. Jimmy Nelson. So at what point do you say, you got to go out and give a Keston Hura for an elite starting pitcher? I think you have to do it. At least consider it if you're Milwaukee.